Hey, what's up guys? In this video, I'm gonna go over my 10 tips of how you can nail focus all the time. Doesn't matter whether you're using manual lenses on moving objects. These tips will help you to always make sure you nail focus all the time. First of all, focus is an important aspect of filmmaking. As a filmmaker, you need to know how to keep your subjects in focus all the time. So here are 10 tips that I normally use when I'm dealing with focus, right? To make sure that all my subjects are always in focus. Tip number 1 is to use focus peaking. Most DSLR cameras have got this feature where the camera highlights areas of your video which are in focus with a particular color. Tip number 2 is to use an external monitor. Almost all external monitors have got a focus assist features. Aside from that, most DSLR cameras have got small camera monitors, making it hard to see if you are in focus or not. An external monitor helps you to see things bigger and accurately. Tip number 3 is to rehearse. Yes, you heard me right. Don't get in a habit of just showing up on set and figure out everything there. Have some times before you start shooting to play around with focus. Even before maybe you go to a shoot, play around with your focus. Find something to shoot and familiarize yourself with how you're going to deal with focus when you are on set. And tip number 4 is know your lens. You should know where to turn your focus ring if your subject is coming towards you or going away from you. Almost all filmmakers that I've met still try to hunt for focus when the subject is suddenly moving towards them or moving away from them. Know which side to turn your focus ring when your subject is moving away or coming towards you. And tip number 5 is to use focus zoom. Again, this is a popular feature on most DSLR cameras. With this feature, you just press a dedicated button on your camera and your camera will magnify an area in your frame that you can set focus on. And then we move on to tip number 6, which is using autofocus on moving objects. You can use a camera that has got a good autofocus system like the 1DX Mark II or 1DX Mark III. So invest in a good camera with a good autofocus system if you have problems with focus. But if you are like me, who is using the Lumix GH5, which has no good autofocus system, let's move on to tip number 7, which is maintaining the distance. Most of the time I shoot on manual lenses anyways, so what I normally do is to set focus and maintain the same distance which my subject is moving at. 90% of my shots I use this technique because most of the time I'm using prime lenses anyways, which doesn't have autofocus. And then tip number 8 is handheld. With this one, I don't set autofocus point. I just focus with my hand as my subject is moving. That is why it is very important for you to know your lens, so that if the subject is moving away from you, you know where to turn your focus ring. It is very tricky, but with little practice, you'll get around it. And tip number 9 is to shoot at a higher aperture. If you set your aperture higher like f22, everything in your frame comes into focus. So you don't even need to worry about focus. But you're not gonna have that shallow depth of field. That is something to give away. And tip number 10 is to use a follow focus system. Ooh! If you have the budget, you can buy a follow focus rig and hire somebody to come and pull focus for you on moving objects, right? However, it may be too expensive, especially if you're starting. So if you're like me, you might just want to make use of the other 9 tips. Anyways, that is it guys. Feel free to ask if you have any question and I'll see you in the next video. This is it. Peace.